I'm a woman in my early 30s, and at the time, I was working as a senior financial analyst at a logistics firm headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. This wasn't just a job to me, it was my career. I had worked my way up from an entry-level position, endured being talked over in meetings, stayed late while others went home, and constantly had to prove I was good enough in a department dominated by men. My boss, Daniel Prescott, was the chief operations officer. Everyone loved him. He was charismatic, confident, and always took credit for other people's work. Especially mine. The problem started during an internal audit I was assigned to help with. I noticed several vendors being paid massive sums for consulting services. The issue? These companies had no real presence. No employees. No office locations. Nothing. When I asked questions, Daniel laughed and told me I was overthinking things. He said I should focus on my lane. That comment stayed with me. I kept digging, quietly. Late nights. Encrypted files. Cross-checking records. And what I found made my stomach drop. Daniel was funneling company money through shell companies that were secretly tied to him and one of his friends. We're talking millions of dollars over several years. I felt sick. But I also felt responsible. Doing the right thing. Our company had a whistleblower policy, and I followed it exactly. I reported everything through the internal compliance system, attached documentation, and even flagged federal contract violations. I believed I was protected. I was naive. 2 weeks later, I was called into HR. Daniel was sitting there. Smiling. They told me I was being terminated for poor performance and failure to be a team player. I was escorted out of the building while coworkers stared. By the next day, Daniel had already started spreading rumors that I was unstable, bitter, and angry because I'd been passed over for promotions. My career was over, at least that's what he wanted. I couldn't find work. Recruiters stopped replying. Friends from the office went silent. I burned through my savings just trying to survive. I cried more in those months than I had in my entire adult life. But what Daniel didn't know was this. I kept everything. I had legally backed up audit logs, emails, approvals, timestamps, everything. And I hadn't taken anything unlawfully. I had followed every rule to the letter. A former coworker messaged me anonymously. Daniel had gotten bolder. Sloppier. Federal contracts were now involved. That's when I contacted a whistleblower attorney in Washington, D.C. He looked at my files and said something I'll never forget. This is one of the cleanest cases I've ever seen. The fallout. The investigation took months. Quiet. Ruthless. Then one morning, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. Daniel Prescott arrested on federal charges. Wire fraud. Embezzlement. Abuse of authority. The same man who called me emotional was led out of the building in handcuffs. The company's board launched an internal review and realized something shocking. The compliance failures Daniel exploited were ones I had warned about years earlier, and documented. They reached out. Apologized. Offered compensation. Then they offered me his job. The ending he deserved. I returned to that company, not as the woman they fired, but as chief operations officer. I implemented strict compliance systems. I worked directly with federal investigators. I rebuilt the department with transparency and accountability. Daniel was sentenced to prison. I was invited to speak at ethics and leadership conferences across the United States. He thought firing me would erase me. Instead, it exposed him. And in the end, I didn't just get my career back. I took everything he stole, his power, his reputation, and his position.